You are listening to the Happiest Lives podcast with Jill Lillard, episode 108.
Welcome to the Happiest Lives podcast, where you'll learn to think better, feel better, and become the woman God says you already are. Here's your host, Jill Lillard.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Happiest Lives podcast. Thank you for joining me today as we continue our habit turnaround series, looking at those pesky habits that might be keeping you stuck. Today, we're talking about white-knuckling, also known as muscling through life with your own strength, holding everything together on your own and secretly feeling that everything depends on you. If you ever found yourself powering your way through into a new thought, a new belief, like you can do that through sheer will, and yet you're finding some resistance and you only stay stuck in old feelings that you're trying to get out of, then you might be white-knuckling. If you ever found yourself thinking, I can't drop the ball, or if I don't do it, no one will, chances are you're white-knuckling. This habit is especially sneaky because it often looks like faithfulness, responsibility, even godliness. But underneath, it's exhausting, and it's not how we're created to live. So today we're going to talk about what white-knuckling is, what it looks like, why we do it, why it's a problem, the habit loop that keeps it going, and how to turn it around. By the end of this episode, I want you to have a vision for how you can live surrendered, spirit-led, and show up fully and faithfully without gripping so tight. So let's dive in. White-knuckling is when we try to handle life through sheer willpower. It's when we grip tightly, emotionally, mentally, even physically, trying to power our way through. So picture someone driving through a storm. They're gripping the steering wheel so tightly that their knuckles turn white. That's the image. Spiritually speaking, white-knuckling is what happens when we stop relying on grace and start depending on our own effort to make things work. It's trying to show up in your marriage, your parenting, job, friendships, without pausing to breathe, pray, or even ask, Lord, is this mine to carry? It's fueled by fear, it's driven by pride, and it's reinforced by the belief that everything will fall apart unless I hold it together. Let me share what white-knuckling has looked like in my own life because I know this habit well. For me, white-knuckling often shows up as a deep sense of responsibility, the pressure that I need to do this. I should do this, and if I don't do this, things will fall apart. It might look like trying to stick to a budget down to the penny because I want to steward what God has given me well, but the energy behind that is fear and control. I'm not trusting God to provide. I'm trying to manage every single variable myself. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a budget, but I threw away having a strict budget a long time ago. I found trying to follow a rigid budget put me in this position where I was trying to control things, and it just led to more stress. White-knuckling has also shown up in how I try to take care of my body. I want to be healthy. I want to honor God with my choices, but sometimes it starts to feel like I'm swimming upstream, fighting against cravings and temptations, and if I let go for even a second, everything will unravel. I'm pushing, striving, restricting, and it becomes less about how I feel and more about being in control. And then there are relationships. Now, this one can be especially hard for people. There have been times when I've tried so hard to be patient. I don't want to be a nag. I don't want to be frustrated or emotional. I wanted to be kind and understanding, to rise above. But inside, I was gripping tightly, performing, holding it all in, trying to be the good one, while something inside me was aching. And here's what I've noticed in all of these. It's not sustainable. You can't hold everything together forever. Eventually, the cracks start to show. Resentment builds. Maybe it leaks out through passive-aggressive comments or headaches and body aches and pains. Maybe it explodes through a binge or a breakdown. And what happens when you do everything right and things fall apart? You start to realize you're not in control after all. So why do we white knuckle? It's not because we're trying to be rebellious or prideful. Most of us are genuinely trying to do the right thing. But underneath it all, we often believe everything depends on us. We have to hold it together. If we just try harder, it'll get better. Letting go feels like giving up. We white knuckle because we're afraid to trust. We confuse perseverance with perfectionism. We haven't yet learned to live by grace. Even Christian women, especially those who deeply want to serve their families and honor God, can slip into this habit. Galatians 3:3 says, "Are you so foolish? After beginning by means of the Spirit, are you now trying to finish by means of the flesh?" This verse hits home. We start off trusting God, but somewhere along the way, we take over. Let's get clear on what white knuckling cost us. It may get things done in the short term, but it does damage in the long term. It creates burnout. It blocks intimacy with God because we're too busy performing to pause and receive. It leads to resentment because we start thinking, why am I the only one trying so hard? It produces self-reliance instead of spirit reliance, and it distorts the gospel, making us think our worth is tied to what we accomplish. White knuckling leads us to try to sustain our own righteousness. We work hard to be the good Christian, the healthy one, the responsible one, but we aren't made to sustain our righteousness. That is Jesus's job. And when we can't keep it up, we often swing to the other extreme, indulgence, avoidance, or giving up altogether. So what's the way out? Well, we first have to look at the habit loop. Like any habit, white knuckling follows a loop. There's the cue. Something happens, you have a thought about it, and you feel stress. The routine, you go into fix-it mode. The reward, you get a moment of control or relief. And the results, you feel exhausted and you can't sustain the effort. It becomes automatic. However, when we bring awareness and grace into that loop, we can change it. We can interrupt the habit. So how do we stop white knuckling? How do we move from a place of discouragement, fear, and self-reliance to a place of trust and surrender? We do it by entering into a process. But more than that, we enter into a relationship. The habit turnaround isn't just about changing your behavior. It's about pausing long enough to see what's happening in your mind, your body, your emotions, and your spirit, so that you can respond with truth, compassion, and clarity. The framework I use to guide this is something I call the heart scan. It's a 4-part process: expose, renew, engage, press on. Okay, we expose, renew, engage, and press on. Expose is we turn on the lights. Renew, we ask what else is possible. Engage, we pause our emotions and we view them as an invitation to engage with God. And then we press on. We take action despite unwanted feelings, but we do it in partnership with the Spirit. So each part of the heart scan process helps you slow down and become more aware. But taken together, they draw you into a relationship with God, a relationship with yourself, and a relationship with the world around you. This process helps you sit far from the struggle to look at it from the outside and not be stuck in the middle of it. It helps you make room for new belief. It gives space to feel. And in that moment, we often find Jesus waiting to meet us there. This is how we move from struggling and discouragement into trust and faith. It's a process and it's a relationship, and we can't rush it. So let's walk through it slowly, step by step. Expose. This is when we turn on the lights. We expose what's going on. We identify the unintentional model we're living in. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? How am I feeling? What am I believing? Maybe you notice that you're white knuckling again. You're tense, controlling, gripping tight. You're trying to be the one who holds it together. And when you trace it back, you realize the belief that's driving it. It all depends on me. That belief creates stress, anxiety, and urgency. It shows up in how you think, you act, and you relate to other people. This step is about honest awareness. We stop and say, this is what's happening in me. Not to shame ourselves, but to shine light on what's been operating in the dark. Next, we renew. We align with the truth. We've uncovered the belief that's driving the white-knuckling. Now we ask, is this even true? Is it helping me? What does God say? We pause and ask better questions. What else is possible? What might the Lord want to show me here? How would I think if I truly trusted Him in this moment? And slowly, our thoughts begin to shift. We remember it doesn't all depend on me. God is present and He's working even when I rest. I don't need to prove anything. Jesus already did that. I have a partner. I'm not alone. Sometimes recognizing a new truth brings an instant sense of relief. However, other times it feels distant. We know it in our mind, but it hasn't reached our heart. That's not failure. That's a sign we need to engage, to step into the emotional experience of what we're believing and surrender it fully. That brings us to step 3 of the heart scan process, engage. We feel the emotion and we invite the Lord. This is where we deal with the feelings underneath the habit. Because here's the thing, you can't white knuckle your way into a new belief. You can't bypass the emotion and expect to live from peace. I know sometimes I try to power my way into a new belief. One time I tried to power my way into the belief, I am easygoing. I am easygoing because I didn't want to acknowledge the frustration I was feeling. I was feeling that I shouldn't be frustrated and I just wanted to be an easygoing person. And so I was trying to force the thought, I am easygoing, but I was doing it in a way that I was white knuckling. I was resisting the frustration that I was feeling. And that just doesn't work because that frustration is giving us information. And that's true of any of the other emotions that you are feeling. So if you try to force yourself into a new model, and so the new model is a new way of thinking, feeling, and doing, and you're doing that without feeling the pain that's driving the old one, then you'll stay stuck. This is where the relationship becomes essential. Emotions are not barriers to growth, they're bridges to intimacy. So instead of pushing past the feeling, we pause and we ask, what emotion am I actually feeling? What is it trying to tell me? Where do I feel it in my body? So when we exposed the model that we're living from, we did that in the exposed section, we turned on the light. We did look at the feeling that was there and we saw the result that the feeling was creating for us. And we saw the thought that was creating the feeling. And here we're pausing the feeling and we're just finding it. We're allowing it to be there without reacting from it and without resisting it. And we feel it. We tune into the sensations we're feeling in our body. We're not indulging it. We're not being consumed by it, but we're positioning ourselves so we can relax. We can sink into our body. We can get off the edge of our seat where all that tension is, and we just fall back. We relax in. And this is a space where we can invite Jesus to meet us because He's here to meet us where we are. And in fact, He's already here. Sometimes we just have to show up so that we can receive His presence. And this is where I like to use the FEEL method. And so that's an acronym for find it, experience it, explain it, and let it go. So we're finding the emotion, identifying the emotion and where it lives in our body. Then we experience it. We sit with it. We don't resist it. We don't react from it. Then we explain it. What thought is generating this feeling? And then we position ourselves to let it go. This is where we might feel the lament and we release. It's where we offer the emotion to the Lord and invite Him to meet us in it. And it's inside this step, the let it go, the lament space, that we often move into what I call the SOS, the surrender our suffering. This is where we push into the pain, we push into the thorn, and we relax. We move from where we are to where we want to go, not by avoiding the pain, but by releasing and relaxing into it, trusting that Jesus has us. It's like falling backward onto the bed and letting that bed catch you. So here's how the SOS unfolds. The suffering, you name the ache, you admit the weight that you're feeling, you lament, you go into the pain, and then you open up, you stop bracing and you breathe. You soften your body and your will, and you surrender. You say, Jesus, I trust you with this. I give it over to you. This is the heart of transformation. It's not about willpower. It's about letting go. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about meeting Jesus in the emotion. And it's from this surrendered place that we're finally able to press on. So pressing on is the fourth part of the heart scan. This is taking action despite unwanted emotion. We're taking action from truth, even when it's hard. We're pressing on not from pressure, not from fear, and we're not waiting until the feelings are gone. So we're holding space for the unwanted emotion. That's where we're meeting the Lord, we're surrendering, and then we're moving into the new feeling of faith and confidence and trust and hope. We've exposed the pattern, we've renewed our thinking, and we've engaged with emotion and met the Lord there. Now, even if the fear lingers, even if discouragement hasn't totally left, we press on anyway. We act from trust. So let's go back to the model. We have the unintentional model where you have a thought. It all depends on me. This creates a feeling of anxious or heavy. The actions are we take over, we micromanage, we overfunction. And the result is it feels like it all depends on me. Then we create our intentional model. This is in the renew phase. We create a new thought. God is with me. I'm not alone. It doesn't all depend on me. The feeling is peaceful, steady, maybe even relieved. The action is we move forward prayerfully. We follow one next step. And the result is we experience a partnership with the Lord, not pressure. We don't wait for everything to feel perfect. We don't wait to feel ready. We press on because we've encountered God in the middle of the unintentional model and the intentional model, where we are and where we want to be. We surrender, and that gives us the courage to keep going. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. So we're trying to figure out, how do I let go without giving up? Or how do I give up without throwing in the towel? So many of us swing from overfunctioning to disconnecting. We grip everything too tight and then we collapse. We overextend ourselves and then we lose hope. But the habit turnaround is not about disengaging. It's about cleaning up how we show up, cleaning up what we're thinking, what we're believing. It's learning how to persevere, but with the energy Christ provides. We're strenuously contending with the energy that Christ has placed within us, not with pressure and fear, because it all depends on me. You're still showing up in your relationships. You're still stewarding your finances. You're still caring for your body. But now it's from a place of openness and trust, not stress or control. So you might turn towards your spouse and make a request, but you're no longer demanding like they need to respond in a certain way. You're letting go without giving up. You're holding space for both the pain of this fallen world and the presence of the one who redeems it. You're asking, Lord, what does it look like to trust you here? What's the next step you want me to take? That's the habit turnaround. Not an escape, not a collapse, but a dance, a movement with the Spirit, a surrender of control without a surrender of hope. So take a deep breath, loosen your grip, and let the Spirit lead. As we wrap this up, I just want to remind you that white-knuckling may be familiar, but it's not your identity. You were not made to live clenched and anxious. You were made to abide. In Matthew 11:28, Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." So today, ask yourself, What am I gripping too tightly? And what would it look like to move in trust instead of tension? The answer isn't throwing in the towel. The answer is letting go of what was never yours to carry in the first place. If this episode spoke to you, I want to invite you to go deeper with me inside my coaching programs, my community of Christian women who want to stop spinning their wheels and start walking with Jesus through every part of their life. We don't just talk about change, we walk it out together. You can learn more at myhappyvault.com. And if you found today's message helpful, would you share it with a friend? Next week, we're going to wrap up the series. We're going to talk about our final habit, the habit of worry, and I'm going to show you how to turn it around. Thank you guys for listening today, and I will see you next week. Hey, before you go, if your days mostly revolve around errands, logistics, or scrolling side by side on the couch, if it's been a while since you felt really close or excited about your marriage, it might be time for a little reinvention. Relationship Reinvention is a self-paced experience made up of 12 meaningful sessions you and your spouse can walk through together at your own pace, in your own way. You'll get lifetime access, so there's no rush. And when you join this month, you'll also get 3 live group coaching calls with me as a bonus. Just head to myhappyvault.com to learn more and join us. I'd love to have you.